Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, we can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Inter Milan versus PSG. You got Inter Milan, who was third place, argued to be one of these stronger teams in this Champions League. I mean, you know, their path here to the final was they beat Feyenoord, who had a lot of confidence because they just beat AC Milan. You beat Bayern Munich in one of the most dramatic, quarterfinal matchups there, where you got Bayern Munich players smacking a ball boy from Italy, and then you go into the best matchup. Now, I will say this: I'll ask this question right now, and we've seen this happen in a lot of sports where they had a strong semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Does that take a lot of gas out of this team? Like, they just hit, like, you're talking about like a pinnacle of a celebration right now, right? You beat Barcelona. They're making the comparisons of the last time, back in 2010 when Inter Milan won the last time. They beat Barcelona to make it to the final. Like, did they use up too much energy right now where now it feels like that Champions League final is just not the final to them? Like, this was their final.
I believe, wasn't 2010 the Wesley Sneijder year? Was that correct? Yeah, there you go. Sorry. Random thought. I remember that stupid tape wristband you wore. Anyways, in this situation, I don't know if it matters as much. It does happen a lot in tournaments where you have a semifinal, a huge win, a huge comeback, a huge victory like that, a really emotional victory. You kind of dump it all right there. Why I say this one, I don't know if it matters, is there are 3 weeks between that game and the championship, the final. Like, that's a long time to get recovered and get healthy and get ready to go and get mentally right. If this was a week later or 2 weeks like it had been previously, I think my answer changes. But that extra week, I think, is a really big week because most of these teams, well, both of these teams in PSG and Inter's position, they have their league pretty well locked down. I believe Inter's 6 points clear, if I'm not mistaken. And
they just haven't clinched it because I think them and Napoli.
Yeah, I think there's 6 in 2 games, and like there's 3 games remaining, so they just have to win
one more.
And they're clear. But yeah, it's and PSG is PSG at the end of the day. I think they're very well clear, if not clinched already. But you don't have to worry about wasting a lot of your energy going into the league as well after all of that. And that's the other piece of this is like with soccer, with football, you have to worry about midweek games. You have to worry about those season games.
Actually, Inter is 3 points behind Napoli, who's in first.
Okay, there you go. So then they might compete to try to get a double. I believe a triple, actually, a treble this year, because I do believe they won the Italian Supercoppa. But
no, they did not win the Supercoppa.
Then all right, we're good then. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they just put it all in the Champions League. We'll see. But yeah, I for the purpose of your question, does the emotional win in the semifinals impact this final? I don't think as much as it could have had it been the old regulation, where it's 2 weeks, maybe even a week and a half in some cases. So I think this will be less impactful, but I do understand where you're coming from, and I still think you'll see a couple sea legs 15 minutes in. But I think that'll go away, basically that 20-minute mark in the match. I just don't see it going too much longer than that. So,
okay, no, I get that, and I agree with the whole, like, you actually have like a bigger, more time to actually get mentally prepared for that final. So I think that does make it different,
and more games in between too. And I think if you want to knock, it's essentially knocking the rust off for a lot of guys, getting the cobwebs out. They have a couple league games to get those cobwebs out.
Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, you got PSG, who finished 15th place. They had obviously the playing game where they beat the crap out of Lille. Then they go up against first place Liverpool, and upset them. And then you go to Aston Villa, which look, am I happy that Aston Villa win as far as they did? Yeah, mainly because I'm a Debo fan. But at the same time, you just kind of felt like maybe these guys are maybe going up against a little bit above their weight class here.
Hey, top 8 team in the league table.
And that's why I want to give them their flowers. Still
It's
want to give them their flowers.
hard to say that. Like, they had a better first half of the season, Champions League wise, than PSG did. That's what the wild thing is.
Exactly. And still, PSG, was like, all right, yeah, you guys are pretty good, but we're moving on. And then obviously they beat Arsenal. And I do love that Luis Enrique was like, oh, I thought we were the farmers. We played in the Farmers League. Like, I love that response. I was like,
I mean, they do.
You just beat three. You just beat 3 Premier League teams, and he's just like, yeah, I guess winning the Farmers League isn't as bad as people think.
No, they play in the farm league, like the developmental league. Absolutely. The difference is PSG has the funds to buy world class players versus.
I think one of the
You don't
biggest
see
problems
Lille doing that.
the biggest issue that many people have with PSG is just that you don't have competition. PSG simply just got better and better and better. And we talk about it a lot in these tournaments. Sometimes it's not the best team. It's sometimes the team that's just in the right form. But in this case, the better team is also in really good form as well. So this is gonna. First of all, what are your expectations of this final? We're talking about Champions League final. Last final wasn't the prettiest of finals. Was there storylines? Oh yeah, you betcha was a bunch of storylines, but it just didn't go. I think how fans expect. Maybe it did go expected how expected because it was Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund. But first of all, no Premier League team, no La Liga team. As a matter of fact, some may argue that Serie A is I think up there in the top 3 of the leagues in Europe right now, and then it's Bundesliga and Liga. That's if you ask me. But you have Inter Milan, team that's been to the final. Last time they won it was in 2010. You got PSG on the other side, who has never won it. They've been to the final during the pandemic. Most people feel like that was kind of an anomaly in some aspect. But haven't been able to get there since, but have been close. As a matter of fact, they were in the semifinal last year. They lost to Borussia Dortmund. Actually, the only team that made it back to the semifinals was PSG. Like, when you think of the expectations between these two teams, like, where are you at as far as like a final?
Yeah, I think this final, first of all, it's being played in Munich at Allianz Arena. So it's worth mentioning the last time a Champions League final was there, it was a 4-3 matchup. So very impressive back and forth affair. I think that's worth mentioning because that stadium is known for scoring goals in general. And these two teams are known for their ability to score goals. I think both teams are going to be on their attacking front foot and ready to go from the whistle. I think the biggest thing is which defense is going to be able to hold up to the pressure the most, which one's going to be able to hold to pressure and then convert it into an attacking chance. And in 5 minutes, potentially take a goal-scoring opportunity on one side and turn it into an actual goal scored on the other side. That's going to be the real difference. Both teams are really good. Both teams are incredibly in form right now. At least in the Champions League side, it's
two great goalkeepers too, by the way.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking Jan Sommer is not set to have himself a class act. But you mentioned the villain arc for Donnarumma in this one is ready and ripe for the picking. But I think Jan Sommer has been second fiddle in so many times, so many cases, that it's finally maybe his chance to stand on his head and showcase how good he actually is. Get to keep that title of best goalkeeper for at least a year. And I do like Lautaro Martinez as the first guy to score a goal. And I think that's going to set the pace there for Inter. Why I think Inter has a great opportunity to win. But I do think they have to be the first team to score. I think that's how this game is going to be decided. I think the first team that scores is going to be the winner. Where you often see a winner coming from the team who can rally from that first goal. This case, I think it's the team who scores first is my odds on for who's going to win this, which I believe is Inter, but it's going to go back and forth nonstop in this one. I don't think we're going to see it grinded out 1-0 or 1-1 into extra time and penalties. I think we're going to see a legitimate back and forth affair at some point in time in this match where we're going to have 2 or 3 goals traded.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great final. Once again, you got Jan Sommer versus Donnarumma, Marquinhos and Stefan de Vrij.
Yeah.
Stefan de Vrij. I mean, what was it Barella? No, not Barella.
Yeah, Barella.
Bastoni.
Oh, yeah, Marco Bastoni.
Yeah, he's also a good defender. Both back lines are really good. Both the entire roster.
Yeah,
I would hate to create like a best 11 of this team, of these two teams, because it would be really hard to not pick one guy over the other.
I'd say the midfield goes to but goes to PSG in this one. I would say that, but I think the defense is split and the attack is split pretty well. But I think that midfield leans more towards PSG.
Yeah, so this is going to be a really good game. I think it'll be, for PSG's sake, for the memes, it will be hilarious just for the fact that like it was always Mbappe this whole time. It was always
Mbappe and Neymar.
Yeah, it was Mbappe all along. And hey, the people that can't stand Inter Miami probably could be like, "Huh, it couldn't win it with Messi."
Yeah. It was all Eminem's fault.
Yeah,
as they called the Messi Neymar.
So this would be definitely the all-time game when it comes to narratives for PSG. Yeah. For Inter Milan, I think it just goes back to just me feeling like this is the most deserved team to win the Champions League. I think I will. No offense, Kelcey. No offense to Edward, but I thought Inter Milan was the best team in the Premier in this league, in this Champions League. They were so stout defensively, and I mean maybe they didn't have Liverpool's goal scoring and also Barcelona's goal scoring, but defensively, they were up there. I believe they were the best defense in the Champions League this season.
I believe in the knockout or in the group stage. You're correct.
Yeah. And so honestly, most deserving is Inter Milan. It would also be an insane one of those things where like you can't make this up. Like the beauty of this game where the team follows the same pathway the same year that they won it 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But also on the other side, how exciting would it be for PSG to finally lift the Champions League? This is what the Qatari group came here to do, right? They came in, bought this team, started telling them go spend on whatever player you want. That's when you brought in Zlatan. That's when you brought in David Beckham. You poached Thiago Silva from AC Milan. You know, this is when you had Gigi Buffon for 1 year. That was kind of weird. Like, you know, this, you know, all that the trial and error that PSG has gone through and obviously the objective was clear, to win a Champions League. Ligue 1, yes, they wanted to win those. They want to win Coupe de France. But the real end goal, the real end product that they wanted was to win a Champions League final and be the last Ligue 1 team, I believe, that was in the Champions League final was actually Marseille, I think.
Before PSG and COVID? I think that's
yeah.
I think it was Marseille in 2002 or 2003. Yeah, that sounds about right. Or was it Monaco with Henry?
Not entirely sure, but I felt like they were saying something like that about that. But anyways, probably, it's not important. But anyways, PSG is trying to get their first Champions League. This is why all this money was brought into this team. This is why whoever was investing into the guys that invested into PSG invested in PSG. They saw that they could build something with this team. They could tune this team perfectly. They went and got those names. They went and brought in the best players possible. They went and got the best French player at the time in Mbappe. Clearly that didn't pan out. And as Madrista, like it's hurting me now as I'm saying all this stuff. But this team is also poised to win the Champions League, I think, as well. These are two teams that both are fitting and deserving of a Champions League title. But I'm going with Inter Milan. I think they've just been clear-cut the best team throughout the tournament.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
Which I'm pretty sure everybody's rooting for Inter Milan. Weirdly enough, everyone hates PSG.
I'll be honest, PSG did themselves no favors with the Neymar and Mbappe era. I have a hard time with that Neymar and Mbappe era to kind of put that aside and know it's not that team anymore. I loved them with Zlatan. I loved that team. But then it was that Mbappe Neymar era was just ridiculous. Along with the Uruguayan forward whose name is running away from me right now. Thank you. Yeah, Edinson Cavani up there as well. I think those three, I loved playing with them in FIFA, but I hated to watch them play because it was just unfair in a lot of ways. But yeah, I get why PSG needs to win one. They definitely need to be that team that wins this one. Inter doesn't need to win. It would be a great story if Inter wins, but it feels like PSG needs to win this. Because to your point about Marseille a minute ago, Marseille is the only French team with a Champions League trophy to their name. So that's, talk about it, French rivalry. Marseille and PSG are long rivals. Maybe not right now, but they are long historic rivals. And Marseille still has that ability.
The first Insert Name FC episode that we had, when we talked about Le Classique, it was actually the second episode. When we talked about the Le Classique, it actually ended with a fight. There was a brawl. That was like super early days of Insert Name FC. And I remember because it was like our games to watch this weekend. I was like, oh, Le Classique, that should be a good one. I was like, all right, well, I didn't expect Fisticups to happen, but all right.
It's true, though. Like, that is an old school rivalry. So I think from that standpoint, I see why PSG needs to win this because they need to get even. At this point in time, you've been in two finals now. You have to come away at 50% from these finals, especially since I think their two finals, you probably had the two best opportunities for a team like PSG to win. You know, they get the bad rap for being in a farmers league because they can't win the easier Champions League matchups they get put into. You know, they're not getting placed against a Real Madrid. They're not getting placed against a Liverpool in Champions League finals. They're not getting placed against a Juventus. They're getting Inter this year, and that's an opportunity. And for Inter, it's a great story, but it's just a great story, which I think frees them up, which is why for me, I like Inter to win. Because I think they're playing freer. There's less pressure attached. There's a lot to prove if you're PSG that you don't need Mbappe. You don't need a Messi. You don't need a Neymar. You don't need Thiago Silva. You don't need Gigi Buffon. You don't need a big-name coach. Because let's be honest, Luis Enrique was not a big-name coach until 2021. I think it is a safe assumption. So you don't need all this. You don't even really need the Qatari money. And that's a proving point. Like, this team is not built necessarily on the Qatari money. It is, but it's not. Like, this team wasn't just, like, throwing money out the window to get this done. This is done under the FFP rules. They followed every financial fair play rule out there. So, for PSG, they need this. But that's why I don't think they're going to be able to win, is because that pressure is unnecessary for these type of finals, and it doesn't allow you to think on the game. Whereas Inter is just, they're happy to be here, man. We're in Germany. We're a young squad, but we are just trying to prove how good of footballers we really are. And that's all they're trying to prove. They're not trying to prove that Italy's the best. They're not trying to prove Inter's the best Milan team. They're not trying to prove this. They're not trying to prove that. They're just out here to prove that they can know how to play the game of football. And I think that's going to set it apart. And that's why Inter, for me, wins.
Who is that guy?